A very good morning to you, and welcome to the official UFC 217 weigh-ins. We're here in New York City. It's 9 a.m. Eastern Time, the Fitzgerald Hotel across the street from Madison Square Garden, and there you see Ovince St. Preux, the first fighter to step on the scale. OSP taking this fight on short notice. He meets Corey Anderson tomorrow night in light heavyweight action. Of course, he's coming off another Von Flu, or maybe we should call it Von Prue choke, just a few weeks back against Yushin Okami at the Saitama Super Arena, and looking to continue his winning ways against Corey Anderson. We move along now and say hello once again to Irish Joe Duffy. He meets James Vick on Saturday night. Back in the UFC, recently signed a new contract. He was a free agent, tested the waters. And in this second chapter, he hits his mark. Irish Joe Duffy on weight. He meets James Vick, expecting a big turnout from the Irish contingency here.
Usually Amber gives them the speech for me. I do. They're all foggy, I know.
Joe Duffy, a member of the TriStar Gym. Also Ayman Zahabi and George St. Pierre. Speaking of Mr. Zahabi, he is on the card. And I do believe he is up next to weigh in. Ayman Zahabi saying hello to all of us. How nice is he? Young Canadian, of course, the younger brother of Faraz Zahabi, who's the head coach over at the TriStar Gym. Ayman Zahabi with a big opportunity here, meeting Ricardo Ramos. Ricardo Ramos. He is 7-0 as a professional. 1-0 in the UFC, picked up his first win back in February in Halifax. $135.2 for Ayman Zahabi, the younger brother of Faraz Zahabi. He hits his mark. Fighting out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. 29 years young. One of the bright young stars coming out of the TriStar Gym in La Belle Province. Let's go back to that light heavyweight fight now and say hello to Corey Anderson, formerly known as Beastin 25-8, although there have been some reports that he has dropped that nickname. In any event, Corey Anderson looking to get back on track against Ovince St. Preux. He hits his mark, 205.4 for Corey Anderson. Originally supposed to fight Patrick Cummins. Patrick Cummins pulled out of the fight due to a staph infection. And in came Ovince St. Preux. So now they'll be meeting on Saturday at Madison Square Garden. Corey Anderson, of course, a part of the Ricardo Almeida fight team under the tutelage of the great Mark Henry. Of course, won the Ultimate Fighter Season 19 against Matt Van Buren. And it appears now we're going to be joined by the reigning, defending UFC bantamweight champion, the one and only Cody Gar Brant, stepping on the scale, getting set to defend his bantamweight title for the very first time. He won it 11 months ago in Las Vegas when he outclassed Dominic Cruz. Here he is stepping on the scale. One of the most anticipated fights of the year. There he goes. Cody Gar Brant, no love. to a round of applause. No love lost between him and his former teammate TJ Dillashaw. It has become very personal between the two. And as you can see right there, by the look on his face, Cody Gar Brant is focused. He's intense. He is locked in. He hits his mark, so he is official. We await the arrival of one TJ Dillashaw, but Cody Gar Brant has done the job, and many people have pegged him as one of the future stars of the UFC, one of the bright young faces of the sport. One of the most anticipated fights, not only on this card, but of the entire year. We say hello now to Ian Kuchilaba, who meets Michal Olegchik on Saturday in light heavyweight action. Ian Kuchilaba about to step on the scale. They call him the Hulk. Of course, fighting out of Moldova. He's very excited, got a nice smile on his face, appears to be in great spirits. He hits his mark, 205.6 for the 13-3 Hulk, looking to pick up his second straight win, his third in the last four. Getting a big opportunity to fight on a very big stage tomorrow night at the world's most famous arena. So we are 5 minutes in now.
Behind the scale. Stop undressing.
We are rolling along.
Stop undressing. Ricardo.
We say hello to Ricardo Ramos, who meets Ayman Zahabi. Moments ago, we saw Zahabi weigh in successfully. Here comes Ramos, 10-1 as a professional, fighting out of Brazil. And he hits his mark, 135.4. Very excited.
Ricardo. Here. This camera. Mine. Yes.
And he is looking to go 2-0 in the UFC. Won his debut back in February in Houston, Texas. Zahabi and Ramos, the curtain jerkers, tomorrow night. They'll be kicking things off. And so they will hopefully set the tone for an entertaining evening. Now we say hello to Mark Godbeer, heavyweight fighter out of England. Was supposed to meet Walt Harris last month. The fight got canceled just hours before. He hits his mark, 244 for the hand of Godbeer. If you recall, Mark Godbeer and Walt Harris were supposed to meet. Fabricio Verdum and Derek Lewis were also supposed to meet on the card. Derek Lewis pulled out due to an injury just hours before fight night. And so Walt Harris was moved up to fight Fabricio Verdum, and Godbeer was left without an opponent. Thankfully for him, the UFC paid him for his time and quickly rescheduled the fight. Walt Harris was submitted within seconds by Verdum, so no harm, no foul there. But they'll get it on, hopefully, on Saturday. The fight that was supposed to take place at UFC 216. We move along now and say hello to Johnny Hendrix. Johnny Hendrix, the middleweight. Always a lot of intrigue in Johnny Hendrix when he weighs in, reinventing himself this time as a member of Team Jackson Wink. Okay, Johnny Hendrix.
So nobody writes negative that, oh, Johnny Hendrix tripped because he missed weight. I misjudged last night that I thought I had some underwear that didn't weigh anything. Well, I was wrong. So instead of losing 1.4 like I should have, I drank up 1.2, which was my fault. So I lost the 1.2, just not for the underwear count, which I should have lost 1.4. So I should have drank only 1 pound back. So all you media people, I didn't miss weight. I just misread the underwear. Okay? No negative. You hear me? No negative.
Oh my, here comes Johnny Hendrix, prefacing what's to come. Hopefully it's good news. Didn't quite understand. And he hits his mark. Okay, there you go. 185.8. So he throws us a curveball, warning us about a potential failure to make weight, but in the end, golly, Johnny Hendrix now saying that he was expecting to miss weight, but in the end he makes the weight anyway. I think it's a little unclear, but the good news for Johnny is that he is on point and he has made weight. Warning all of us not to write any negative stories. Johnny Hendrix just in great spirits. He meets Paulo Bohachinha tomorrow, a fight that a lot of people think was made to build up Bohachinha, but Johnny Hendrix appears to have other plans in mind. James Vick now telling us a little story. Appears to be, one of the bigger lightweights in the UFC. Face usually sunken in. That is a big lightweight. And of course, he meets Joe Duffy on Saturday. 11-1 as a professional. 155.2 for the Texecutioner. 6'3" tall. Without a doubt, one of the tallest lightweights in the UFC, and looking to make some noise. Said he's been frustrated by the fact that he cannot get a big name opponent to sign on the dotted line. Said recently that Evan Dunham and Anthony Pettis turned down fights against him. And so he settles on Joe Duffy in a big stage here, hoping to move up those rankings in the UFC. Now we say hello to Walt Harris, who, as I mentioned moments ago, took that fight against Fabricio Verdum on just hours' notice. He was originally supposed to fight Mark Godbeer. He gets a chance to do that on Saturday, and he hits his mark, 251.8 for the American Top Team member Walt Harris on the scale, hitting his mark as well. The big man, Walt Harris. Ten and 6 as a professional. They call him the big ticket. And he looks to get back on track on Saturday night. Now we say hello to Poland's own Michał Oleksiak. Stepping on the scale, he meets Ion Kuchilaba. They call him the Hummer. And he is 12-2 as a professional, has won 205.2 for the Polish fighter who is making his UFC debut. Has primarily fought around Poland. Of course, speaking of Polish fighters, there's a pretty famous one at the top of the card. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the UFC strawweight champion, proudly represents Poland. Big Polish community here in the New York City area, so they will certainly have a lot of fans in their corner on Saturday. So thus far, no one has missed their mark. No drama just yet. And we're about to say hello to Thug Rose Namajunas, the #1 strawweight contender. Trailing behind her is TJ Dillashaw, so we're about to see some big names. Stay tuned for that. Rose Namajunas stepping on the scale. What an opportunity for her. Getting a chance to fight for the UFC strawweight title for the second time. Remember, she was in the finale of The Ultimate Fighter against Carla Esparza. She steps on the scale. She hits her mark. That's 114 for the young woman they call Thug Rose. Stoic, unflappable, always on point, always with her game face on. We've also come to find out that she is a phenomenal piano player. So a young woman of many talents. The 6'3" Thug Rose Namajunas looking to dethrone Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Big spot for her. Speaking of big spots, let's say hello now to the former UFC bantamweight champion, the man who looks to recapture that belt on Saturday night, TJ Dillashaw. What an opportunity for him. Former Team Alpha Male member stepping on the scale. And he hits his mark, 134.8 for TJ Dillashaw. A lot of accusations have been thrown his way, and he's looking to shut up the doubters, looking to shut up his former friends and teammates, looking to once again become the UFC bantamweight champion. That's TJ Dillashaw. So that means TJ Dillashaw and Cody Gar Brant is official for Saturday night. They have both hit their mark. They are both on point. And of the 3 title fights on the card, that is the first one to be official. On Saturday, Randy Brown, a product of Dana White's looking for a fight series. They call him Rude Boy. Currently fighting out of Queens, New York. Originally from Spanish Town, Jamaica, looking to get back on track. He recently lost to Bilal Muhammad in Brooklyn back in February. Has been saying a lot about Mickey Gall, saying that he is entitled, that he hasn't earned anything, that he thinks he's the cream of the crop, but he's in for a rude awakening from the Rude Boy himself. And Randy Brown hits his mark, 170.8 for the New Yorker, getting an opportunity now to fight in his adopted home state for the 3rd time. Fought in Albany, then fought in Brooklyn, and of course now getting an opportunity to fight at the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. What a great spot for him. Many years ago, another Jamaican called Madison Square Garden home, ruled Madison Square Garden. Former center for the New York Knicks, Patrick Ewing. Randy Brown looking to recreate some of Patrick's magic tomorrow night at UFC 217. What a great fight that will be, featuring 2 of the young stars of the UFC's welterweight division. Mickey Gall making a lot of noise. And looking forward to seeing him compete for the first time in 2017. Say hello now to Curtis Blades. The big man meets Alexei Oleinik tomorrow night. This is a heavy hitter. They call him Razor, 7-1 as a professional, coming off a win over Daniel Omelianchuk. He is 2-1 in the UFC, has won his last 2 in a row. 258.8 for Curtis Blades. Currently fighting out of Chicago, Illinois. Has only lost once, and that was in his UFC debut. Lost to Francis Ngannou back in April of 2016. Since then, he's won 2 in a row. And also has won no contest, of course, against Adam Milstead in February of this past year. That's the other heavyweight fight on this card. They love the big boys in the UFC. Borrachinha in Portuguese translates to the eraser, but now he is dropping Borrachinha and he wants to be known as Paulo Costa. And so he wants people to refer to him as the eraser, no longer as Borrachinha. Look at those features. 185.8. Chiseled features. He has been on a roll in the UFC, and look at that stare. He is a man on a mission. What an opportunity for him to fight on the main card against a former champion in Johnny Hendrix. Great to see Mickey Gall back. It has been almost a year since we've seen him in action. He's coming off that win over Sage Northcutt in December. Made all kinds of noise last year as he defeated CM Punk at UFC 203. Here he is, New Jersey's own Mickey Gall, 4-0 as a professional. He hits his mark, 169.8 for Mickey Gall. Wins in the UFC over Mike Jackson, CM Punk, and of course Sage Northcutt. All finishes. Beat Sage Northcutt in the second round via submission. The CM Punk win, of course, was a submission win. Mike Jackson, also a submission win. Here comes the boa constrictor. He was on the MMA Hour on Monday in studio. Meets Curtis Blades on Saturday. It's coming up 246.2 for Alexei Olenek. He hits his mark, so that means his fight against Curtis Blades is official. The New York Cosmos, the New York Apples, the New York Raiders. And we'll hold that thought as we say hello to Gamebred, Jorge Masvidal. One of a kind. Plays by his own rules. Big opportunity against Wonderboy Thompson. He hits his mark. That's 171 for Westchester, Florida's own Jorge Masvidal, posing for the cameras. One of the true originals of the UFC, but looking to get back on track against Wonderboy Thompson. Now we say hello to the reigning, defending middleweight champion, one of the most popular and polarizing fighters in the UFC, looking to defend his title for the second time. First time was against Dan Henderson in October of last year, and now he gets the biggest opportunity of his career. Here comes Michael Bisping, always filled with energy, intense stare. And he hits his mark, 184.7. As he says, F you to George St. Pierre. We thought for a second that he was cursing out the crowd in attendance, but he made it clear he was talking to Mr. St. Pierre.
Can you get back up there for 5 seconds and pose for me? Thank you.
Michael Bisping has been on fire all week. Great spirits, poking at George St. Pierre, the pride of Manchester. There he is, the most famous fighter to come out of the United Kingdom. So proud of where he comes from. What an amazing career. Winner of Tough Season 3. Took him 10 years to get a middleweight title shot. Beat Luke Rockhold on just 2.5 weeks' notice. Defended his title against Dan Henderson. Took a year off. Had knee surgery. And now he looks to send George St. Pierre back into retirement. Hello there, Mr. Wonderboy. Here comes Wonderboy Thompson, stepping on to the scale, looking to exercise those demons. Last year, fighting to a draw. Hasn't won since June of 2016, and there he is, Wonderboy Thompson, 170.4. Always a smile on his face. A real-life Power Ranger, flanked by his dad, Ray Thompson, who of course got him into martial arts. Fighting out of South Carolina. Big fight on the pay-per-view. Wonderboy Thompson against Jorge Masvidal. Seems a little sunken in, a little dehydrated. It's always a grind for these fighters to make that weight. It's unbelievable what they go through to hit that mark. And here he comes, the former UFC welterweight champion, the pride of Montreal, the pride of Saint-Isidore, Quebec, the face of Canadian MMA, one of the greatest fighters of all time, about to step on the scale as a UFC fighter for the first time in 4 years. What a moment this is. Drink it up. Soak it in, fans. There was a time we thought we'd never get to see this man compete again. What a privilege, what an honor it is to see him once again, this time looking to make history as just the 4th fighter in UFC history to be a champion in 2 different weight classes. He steps on the scale for the first time in 4 years, and he hits his mark, 184.4 for George Rush St. Pierre. And look at this. What a moment. What a time. George St. Pierre posing for the fans in attendance, appears to be in great spirits. You'd have to imagine this weight cut, not a difficult one for George St. Pierre. He has fought as a 170-pounder for the vast majority of his career, now looking to reinvent himself as a middleweight. Looking to dethrone the winningest fighter in UFC history. There he goes, George St. Pierre. That means the main event is official. George St. Pierre versus Michael Bisping is on for the middleweight title, the main event of UFC 217. Here she comes. And one of her coaches tells me that she is good to go. We're about to find out. Here she is, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the strawweight queen of the UFC, one of the greatest of all time when it comes to women's MMA. She steps on the scale. She is undefeated as a pro. Here we go. She puts the number 1 up, always very confident, and she hits her mark. That's 115 for Joanna Jędrzejczyk with just 5 minutes to spare. Looking to make history on Saturday night, hoping to tie Ronda Rousey's title defense record. She just said it herself, making history tomorrow night. Poland's own, the pride of Poland, Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Rose Namajunas. That fight is official. She hits her mark with just 5 minutes to spare. She has been playing mind games with Rose leading up to this fight, and maybe this was just another one. In any event, Joanna is official, Rose is official, and all 24 fighters on the card are official. No drama this time as far as UFC 217 is concerned. Later on today, we'll have the ceremonial weigh-ins for you. That's at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, tomorrow night, it's the big one, UFC 217 at the world's most famous arena. We appreciate you sticking around with us all morning long to check out the official weigh-ins. Hope you enjoyed the broadcast. We'll see you later on today for the ceremonial weigh-ins, preview show, and so much more to come from New York. Keep it locked. For now, we'll say goodbye. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Mario Helwani saying good afternoon from New York.